What's cracking, you guys? Hamsolo05 here today to do a reality check or review for Scarlet Nexus. Let's get it. Alright, so we're back. As I said, we're going to be reviewing or doing a little reality check for Scarlet Nexus. This was an awesome game for me. I absolutely loved it. We're going to be talking about the pros, the cons, and I'll actually be giving a letter grade between A and F, so you'll see how I personally felt about the game. Now, this game was made by Bandai Namco and Toast. That was the development side. The publishing side was Bandai Namco as well. They tend to do that with a lot of their games. This game had two protagonists. So Yuito Sumeragi was probably the main character because, you know, the story is pretty much about him. And then the second protagonist is Kasane Randall, which she is an absolute badass. Doesn't really care about what anybody thinks, just kind of does her own thing. So she's kind of like the Vegeta to the Goku. It's pretty cool. Anyways, let's get on to it. Like I said, I want to list off the pros and cons, so let's start with the pros first. The pros for me first, as I said just a moment ago, that there's two protagonists. That gives you two different stories to go down through the game. So that gives you a lot of gameplay, which brings me to my next pro. There is a lot of story, lots to learn about your characters, lots to figure out about your characters, and within figuring out stuff about your characters, they level up and get stronger and learn different moves to help you throughout your combinations when you're going into the fight. I forgot to mention it earlier, this is a JRPG game. I'm sure you know that if you're looking this up and just kind of getting your curious thoughts on it or whatnot, but I just thought I'd throw that out there. But another really cool thing that I personally like about the game, there is a ton of awesome side characters. The side characters, there's like 8 of them or something wild like that. A ton of different people to do stuff and learn stuff with and use their styles in certain types of combat where you'll maybe have blind or not, or you'll be blind to an enemy when you go to fight it. But if you use a certain ability like clairvoyance, then you can start to see the enemy. Or you use electricity, or you use fire, or you use I mean, there's a lot. There's a ton of different things to do, and that's the cool part about this game is there's a lot of different characters, so you get a lot of backstory, but then you also get the opportunity to use them within the story, which makes it really fun. So moving on to the next thing, one thing, or another thing, I should say, that I liked about this specific game is it's very mysterious. There is a lot of mystery that is the game, that you're trying to figure out who's responsible for what really happened, how do we get here, how did Yuito end up being the person that he is, without destroying, without ruining any part of the game. I'm just going to say that it takes a lot of different turns that you may not see coming. You may think, oh, this person is the main issue, but it ends up not being that at all. So, I mean, the mystery of the game itself is really cool. There's lots of mini challenges to do in the game to keep you kind of busy, keep you upgrading, keep you learning more stuff about the game. And the music of the game really ties you into it, makes you kind of feel like you're part of the scene. It's kind of a hip kind of music when you're at home, but when you're in the battle, it can kind of sound serious, like you're going to war kind of music. So I felt like the way that they did the music in that game was absolutely beautiful. But as I said in the last video, I'm gonna say it again, with pros comes cons. The cons of this game, for me, it was fairly minimal. I didn't have a whole lot of issues with the game. But one of the main cons was it's very linear. You are almost going the correct direction every single time. There's not a whole lot of backtracking that you have to do unless you're trying to 100 the game. It's fairly simple. You go straight and you'll end up where you need to be. It's hard to get lost in that game. Another con for me was the comic type story. Now the story was really good. It told you a lot about the characters. You definitely knew what was going on if you hung around to listen to everything. But like the part that kind of threw you off is it would start out as like a video cutscene and then it just stop, and then the comics would start to come up on the screen, and then you would more or less just be listening to it. I mean, you can enjoy the artwork because the artwork is beautiful, but I mean, it doesn't impact you. It doesn't pull you in the same way it would if it was all just a video, which I'm sure would have been a whole heck of a lot more money. So I understand why they did it, but at the same time, I could see a lot of people losing immersion just for that fact. That's a big deal for a lot of people to be able to see what's constantly going on instead of it just kind of being heard and then there's just pictures on the screen to kind of represent what part of the conversation that they're in. The side stories can be a bit boring sometimes. I know a lot of people that I've talked to about the game said that they would skip certain parts, but the thing is if you skip those certain parts, you miss out on leveling up your character to the highest extent. So it kind of forces you to do all of that stuff if you want to take advantage fully of those characters, which for me was fun, but I could see somebody that's just trying to get in there, complete the game, have a good time. I could see them getting really bored with the cutscenes and all the storytelling, especially if all you want to do is get in and fight. And like I said, it's easy to kind of get bored of that, but at the same time, it's also easy to miss little things that would help you progress that way. So as I said earlier, it's fairly linear, so there's not a whole lot you can miss, but there are things that you need to do throughout the game, like get certain gifts for people to level them up and all this little stuff that you wouldn't even think of if you were just trying to complete the game, or if you were I don't know, it's just something that I feel like is easily overlooked. And then my last one of my last thoughts is the game can kind of feel a little too easy. I played it at first through normal mode because I wasn't sure how it was going to go. I didn't want to feel like I was playing Demon Souls or something like that. I wasn't sure what I was getting into, so I went on ahead and went through the whole game on normal, and that was a really good time. I decided to bump it up a level to hard, or whatever the hardest level of difficulty is in that game, and I went through it the second time with Kasane, and it was almost easier than the normal mode, so that was a little puzzling. I was expecting it to be really difficult since it was not only the New Game Plus, but I also had it on the hardest difficulty. So I was expecting it to be a little bit more rougher, but I actually beat it a little quicker than I beat the Yuito part on normal. So whatever. But anyways, I absolutely love this game. I highly recommend it. It's on Game Pass right now if you have Xbox. For a PlayStation, it's still out and available for that as well if you want to pick it up on PlayStation. I believe it's a $60 game currently, but it may have gone down in price a little bit, but it's a game that I highly recommend. I think you should totally at least give it a try, especially if you have an Xbox. I personally give this game from A to F a B+. I know that might be really high for some people, but that's just how much this game meant to me. It was my game of the year for quite some time. And then just recently another game kind of stole that away, but It's definitely one of my favorite games of 2021. I'd like to thank you guys for coming in and tuning in with your boy Ham Solo. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you'd like. I'd definitely appreciate it. But anyways, have a great day, you guys.